Great. So don't please beat us up for being a bit off if your name is going to San Francisco and you just want to make sure we know. That's good. I'm glad. I hope you like those orders. That said, just make sure and tell. And I'm going to provide you a couple point of contacts. So who is the point of contact for the billet map as we go forward? Really?
Well, okay. Does anybody else want to volunteer?
I thought that your shop was doing that. Okay, so Mr. Cook, stand up. If you don't know Mr. Cook, this is Mr. Cook. He is the department head for logistics, and he and his SPO are going to be working on making sure these names are right. So if you see your name and you're like, why am I moving from the BBST to the station? I didn't think I had orders. Well, before you panic, tell Mr. Cook that you think it might not be quite right and let us go through it. Because some of the position codes are still a little bit off. I don't expect anyone in this room, to have major change. Just so you know. There is, as you can understand it, some change happening in the air station in the group. But there's very little change associated with Sector Puget Sound for you in this room. Most of the change had to do with the MU rating change. That said, now I get to open it up for questions and answers. So you get everything you wanted? Okay. Questions? Yes?
Captain, I was just curious about the watch standing in the Jayhawk. The situ, there are going to be two other watch standers. Are they folding into the situ, or are they two separate? Is it a separate watch?
Okay, so I have to repeat the questions for the camera. So the question is, how is the watch going to work with the Jayhawk if they're getting these other people? How is that going to work? Well, the extra billets aren't for the situ or the CDO. The extra billets are for the comms unit watchstanders that are in that little room in the back there that are listening to the towers. So the situ position, the OU position, and the CDO position are not changing. There is one or two additions to the OU position. Coming from Port Angeles, they have some OUs, and those OU billets are going to augment ours, and so we'll have a little bit more OU capability.
There's
on the
a couple
watch.
of civilians that are coming.
Couple civilians. However, most of the OSs that are coming are OSs to go right into the comms watch part. So you'll have two comms watch people listening to the radios, which frankly is much, much better. For those people that are in the Jayhawk a lot, much, much better because now you have more ears and that's always good. With 11 towers is a lot of towers, just so you know. Perspective-wise, other sectors average about 6. So that's why we have to have two listeners, 4 years, basically. So good question. Yes?
Captain Lieutenant Lazo, reserve side. So does it look like we're going to be absorbing most of the reserve billets over there as well? Or are they going to be coming and transferring over here?
Mm-hmm. So what about the reserve billets that are in Port Angeles right now? Are they going to be coming and drilling in Seattle, or are they going to be drilling out in Port Angeles? Most of them we anticipate will continue to drill in Port Angeles. So you will have just some more opportunities to stay in Sector Puget Sound, but maybe have your drill site in Port Angeles or somewhere else. They don't have any, my understanding is none of their reserve billets are attached to stations. Is that correct?
Well, they are.
They're at Station
Bellingham and Station Port Angeles.
I'm sorry, Station Bellingham and Station Port Angeles have the majority of the reserves. There are some reserve officer billets in the air station.
Right.
Now, I think we're still kind of working through that, frankly, and we'll probably have a work group to make sure that we understand if there's a change why we would do it.
And we're completely wiped. We're not going to have the command center out there at all.
Okay, so what about the command center in Port Angeles? Good question. The command center in Port Angeles, we're leaving a few, not very many, actually just 2 OSs out in Port Angeles. And we've changed 3 OS billets to BM billets because Station Port Angeles never had a communications capability whatsoever. They always used the group's communications. So when they were running boat ops or whatever, they had the group do their comms. So now with this change, they're going to have some ability to do their own communications, just like any other station. But the group communication center is going to be one of our COOP sites now. So it will not be staffed. It'll be staffed similar to a station, and there won't be any, when the air station wants to do ops, they'll do what every other air station does, put somebody in there for comms. But operationally and all of the checks, operation checks when you're underway, will be out of the Jayhawk.
One more and then I'm
Okay.
done. Okay, so for QR and Nia Bay and all of them, are we taking control over those stations too?
Quilly
Or
River,
like their search and
yeah, what
rescue
about
bases and stuff?
what about Quilly River and Nia Bay? Are we going to have those stations? Yes.
Okay.
So Quilly River, Nia Bay, Bellingham, and Port Angeles Station Bellingham. So 4 new stations, all of their law enforcement, all of their SAR. And so most of the time, for instance, I visited Quilly River, and they have a comms watchstander during the day, and then at night they roll over the phone calls and the radio calls to the group. Well, I don't anticipate that changing. During the day they'll be doing their regular comms watch, and at night
Change.
Jayhawk will be monitoring their activity.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yes?
Is there any chance of potentially stationing pollution investigators, marine safety personnel at Port Angeles?
Is there any chance of moving functions and capability for pollution investigators or IOs out to Port Angeles or some other place? Was the question. Well, we had these discussions front and center, long and hot and heavy with your department heads and representatives a year ago. And I asked that tough question a year ago because that was the time to make the change. We did not propose it at that time. So, obviously, it's going to be further discussed as we move along Sector Puget Sound. For now, the billet maps are set. And until July, and until we test this organization the way we have it, we're going to keep, hold what we have, hold what we propose, and not make any PAL changes in any way or try and introduce a new unit or a new subunit to the mix until we have implemented what was approved by the Commandant. So the opportunity in the window, and that discussion was held a year ago, and at that time it was determined that there's not enough work and there's enough reason to add competency. And I'll tell you that I am hoping and working and campaigning very hard for an active auxiliary capability in Nia Bay and Quileute for pollution investigation, for uninspected passenger vessel exams, for towing exams, all these competencies. This is a whole new group of auxiliarists that are very active out on that part of our AOR that we now get to have relationships with in a formal way with Sector Puget Sound. And I'm hoping that a lot of those things, just like we have Lou Herrick up north, and he's done a great job of filling quite a few gaps for us as an auxiliarist and training others. Many of you in this room have been trained by him. In the same way, I'm hoping to extend training and competencies through the auxiliary in that area and see what we have a couple years from now.